The NBA Gambling Podcast and the Sports Gambling Podcast are now presented by Edge Boost. Edge Boost enables you to double your bet with no interest. Go to sportsgamepodcast.com/edge to get started today. And welcome, everybody, to the NBA Gambling Podcast. It is a rare Monday night episode, currently late May the 29th. I'm your host for the episode, Scott Reichel, joined by Mr. I Bet My Entire Invoice on the Celtics, Delonte Smith. And together, we're going to recap what happened in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, or what we thought might be a good game. It was fun. I had a lot of fun watching it. I know some people didn't, but overall, Miami's now going to the finals. We'll talk about that and what our overall takeaways were, and maybe a brief discussion on the future of Boston and what we might expect to see in the finals. But Delonte, how's it going with you? I know before we went on air, you told me that you might have pivoted off of what you initially had. Just to make sure, your invoice is still intact, correct? That's the breaking news?
Yeah, we're good. We're good with the invoice. We might have added a little extra to come out on top a little, but outside of that, man, yeah, it went totally not like I handicapped the game. Miami showed up and showed out for sure. Ugly game, and I thought I actually wrote an article today, and I put in I think the exact sentence that I put was, the uglier the game, the better it is for Miami, and that seemed to be exactly true. And it came out. Butler, Martin, pretty much won that game for those guys. Second time I guess not in a row because they went to the final and lost. But yeah, man, back-to-back years of heartbreak for Celtics. The Tatum injury might have robbed us a little bit of a better game, but it is what it is when the outcome. So congrats to Miami. Well deserved for sure. First 8 seed since the Knicks in 99, right?
Yeah. They got swept by the Spurs, so hopefully Miami fares better than that. But still, either way, to go through my plays from the show for Game 7, I absolutely crushed it. I think I won everything that I had. I had the Heat plus the 7.5. That won easily. I had the under. That won easily. I had Caleb Martin double-double. Massive sweat. I can't believe he was still in the game up 30 with about a minute to go, but he got his 10th rebound with about 40 seconds to go, plus 370, cashed that to the bank. That was my dog there. And then I had a couple of parlays, which I ended up creating with Adam Rosenberg, and we kind of were trying to cook into the Discord, and we actually did. Usually when you have those last-second get-togethers to generate a parlay, you're just lighting money on fire. That was not the case in this one. We actually crushed it. So to go through the parlays, that I ended up having, the one that I won was roughly plus 1,100. Brogdon under 5.5 points. I can't believe it was plus money at 5.5. That was insane. Butler 25 plus points. White 10 plus points. Adebayo 8 plus rebounds. Martin 6 plus rebounds. Tatum 8 plus rebounds. And Horford 6 plus rebounds. That paid out at plus 1181. That was a winner. However, I was one Derek White three-pointer away in a separate parlay for making $1,100. I had a separate plus 4,500 parlay. Bam under 17.5 points. Butler under 6.5 assists. White 3 plus threes. Bam 9.5 over on the rebounds. And Martin 10 plus rebounds. White went 2 of 9 from 3. And as a result, I lost that one. So I had a very nice day with the parlays, with the straight bets, with Martin, with the Heat, with the under. It was a great day for me. But anything you want to share about your personal bets? Any player props? I know that we have a discussion to have about the awards from the Eastern Conference Finals. But for the sake of the game, how'd you do on the player props?
So I did okay. I got buried on Tatum. I was on him pretty heavy on his points. But I did get his rebounds and rebounds plus assists to the window. I got Bam under 10.5 rebounds. So I think that's a bad landing spot for the books because it opened 9.5, closed 10.5, and he landed 10. And I also had his assists over. So that was pretty good. I have Vincent under 19.5 points, rebounds, and assists. That cashed. I'm not even going to tell you. I had Caleb Martin points, rebounds, and assists under. I'm ashamed.
Well, you said you were going to take the under on every role player, and Strus, as far as
except
I know,
Strus.
went under.
Right? Yeah, but I took Strus over. He's the only one that I took.
Okay.
Over.
All right.
Yeah,
my bad.
I took Strus over, and I took Duncan over. Even though I know at the end, Duncan was 7.5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he got there. Who else did I put on Boston? I played Robert Williams over. He got there. I got buried on Tatum. I played Smart over but he didn't do anything. Horford under, Derek White points, rebounds, and assists under, Jalen under points, rebounds, and assists. Brogdon, I played his threes under, which was only a half, but it was still plus money.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I had a decent day as far as prop wise, but like I said, I got out of that Boston position immediately. I know we talked about it before we got on, but as soon as I saw how it was going and how the body language was of Miami versus what Boston was doing, along with seeing Tatum's ankle and how he was just dragging his leg up the court, yeah, I got out of that immediately.
Yeah.
As soon as the commercial break went.
Besides that, I also know I leaned to the over on turnovers for Tatum and Brown because they couldn't solve a zone. Tatum went under, Brown had 8 turnovers, so yeah, that went well over. Do you think it's time to actually start going through the actual game? Because I feel like we went through our actual bets, but most people are going to look at the game and just go, well, Boston no-showed it, Miami buried them, and that's the end of that, and that's the end of the show. But I feel like there's more detail we can go into for the sake of this. I'm not going to say Boston was going to win, but Tatum got hurt in the first minute of the game, or like the first 3 minutes, and that changed the entire complexion of the game, as far as I'm concerned. Because Boston had no backup plan. Their entire offensive game plan for the last 3 games was Tatum, please do something. I beg you, please drop 30 points. And once Tatum got hurt, and I know he had a couple of dunks there to get some free points at the end there, he couldn't generate separation. He couldn't dribble that much. Miami got him involved in every single defensive possession, which I thought was huge because they wanted to tire him out on the defensive end, and he also couldn't stay in front of anybody. So I thought Miami did a good job of realizing that Tatum was hurt, and they went at him. Butler also got injured midway through the game.
Yeah, I saw that.
Unlike what Miami did, Boston never really went at Butler. They kind of just kept trying to go at the other guys, and I thought they could have tried to make life more difficult for Butler, trying to make sure that he was actually giving energy on defense. It really seemed like Butler the entire second half was trying to cherry pick at the 3-point line for steals and dunks. Didn't it look that way?
Yeah, a little bit. He got one off the Jalen. I think he got stripped by, was it Lowry that stripped him and got it up to Jimmy for the dunk? I think that kind of broke it
Butler
open.
had 2. He had one in the first half where he stripped Tatum, and there was one in the second half where I think he stripped Brown, I think.
Yeah, that's what it was. And he got the breakaway dunk. And Mazzulla called the timeout. Yeah, I think that's kind of where they were on the brink of like blowing it open.
Yeah, but to go quickly through the rest of Boston's team, nobody else stepped up. Once again, with Tatum being the main guy, the problem is nobody else was willing to step up, which was the problem. And Brown attempted 23 shots, went 1 for 9 from 3. Shout out to Boston, by the way. People who thought that, 7 for 35 can't happen again. You're right. They went 9 of 42. Yeah, they went 9 of 42 from 3. So, yeah, it did happen again. But nobody else did anything. I mean, I thought Horford had effort, but Derek White was good. Couldn't hit a 3 once again, killed my parlay by a 3. But White had a good surge there in the third quarter where it looked like he was the only guy doing anything. But Brogdon played. I don't know why. He couldn't move. He was completely useless. Brogdon was a minus 15 in 7 minutes, which is just absolutely disgusting. But yeah, I don't really have much more to say about Boston. I know the coaching was a problem. And once again, I wasn't giving Mazzulla flowers because they ended up making shots at the end of games. And once again, White hit the miracle tip in at the buzzer just so they ended up making it to game 7. Mazzulla didn't really do much, but to be honest, do you want to blame Mazzulla for this game? Because Tatum got hurt and nobody did anything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him for it. I mean, that kind of throws a wrench into your whole game plan. Yeah. So, I mean, he tried. I give him credit for trying at least and trying to get it out. But you could see he couldn't even land. He couldn't even land the right way. He was like being iffy on such like jumpers and going to the lane. Even off the Euro dunk, you could see him grimacing a little bit. So yeah, I don't blame him. I mean, I was one of the people who I didn't put a ton of the blame on him, just a little bit. I put maybe like 60-40 on him and the players. So I wasn't like burying him like everybody else was, but I did think that he, deserved some blame, of course. But I mean, I think he'll be better next year. I'm assuming they're going to bring him back. He'll have a full staff. I mean, he's kind of just thrown into this. To a team that was, expected to go back to the NBA Finals.
Well, he's got the built-in alibi because if Tatum was healthy, we would have won. Is that true? I don't know, but that's the argument they're going to use.
Yeah, we can say it because we can't prove it. That's this. It's a built-in excuse, but I mean, either way, I mean, he was dealt a bad hand from the jump. Not saying that's not to, because if he would have won, it would have been different, but he still was not allowed a full off season because when did that Ime stuff happen? Like
that happened a couple weeks before the season at that point.
Right. So it's kind of like, he's in there. Will Hardy's gone. The other coach that went, who was that? Who was the other coach? The Jazz's coach? Is that Will Hardy?
Well, half the staff left with Hardy to go to Utah, from what I remember.
So, yeah. So, I mean, you got to give him some kind of slack, I guess, if you're from an ownership perspective. But Boston, I guess people who cover the team and people who follow them more in depth than both of us do, they say Brad Stevens loves him. So, I mean, we'll see how it goes. But I don't think it was as much to do with Boston being bad than it was Miami being good. So I want to give them a ton of credit for.
I think it was a mix. It was a mix because once again, Tatum was their one and only option, and when he became a decoy, which is what he was for the entire game, he was a decoy. They were screwed. The hierarchy was out of place. Boston had no idea what they were doing with any possession. Miami had some really bad possessions too, but at least they had some motions. They were trying to get some open looks. A lot of backdoor cuts as the game went on, and Martin couldn't miss from three for the majority of the game, which helped.
Yeah.
But I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think Mazzulla is an abysmal coach. I've said it. Now, I'm not fully blaming him for Game 7 because, once again, Tatum got hurt, and there were also some issues with the players not having any mental toughness. I just don't think he's a good X's and O's coach, simply put. And I think that he constantly got bailed out by the talent of his players instead of actually trying to put his players in the best position to succeed. And because of that, once Tatum went down, Mazzulla had no backup plan. There was nothing. They were just trying to scramble, and they at no point even came close to anything besides White going crazy for the first 5 minutes of the third quarter. So I don't think Mazzulla is a good coach. But once again, Tatum getting hurt definitely had a big impact. Brown also can't make a smart decision with the basketball to save his life. He can't dribble. He had 8 turnovers. Miami was just daring him to have the ball in his hands because they knew they were going to get a break the other way, and they did. But I'm going to pivot over to Miami because that was the main discussion I wanted for Boston. Tatum got injured. It sucks. But once again, Boston had no backup plan. As for Miami, they were really close to blowing a 3-0 lead, and everyone on Twitter was on pace to potentially completely flip on Spoelstra and Butler. And now everyone loves them again because they kept making quotes and they finally backed it up. Spoelstra's quote of, "We want to play Game 7 right now," which sounded like the cheesiest quote of all time. Suddenly it looks pretty good. That's all I'm saying. The quotes look a lot better right after you win. And also the Derek White buzzer beater went from a top 5 moment in NBA history to the Aaron Boone home run in baseball where you didn't even win the title anyway, so who cares? That's kind of how I'm looking at it. But either way, for Miami, shout out to Caleb Martin, who was a consistent just beast the entire series, who played 45 minutes. I said he would play 45 minutes in this game, and he played exactly 45. Shout out to him for getting the 10th rebound in the final minute when they were up 20. And shout out to him for also going 4 of 6 from 3, 11 of 16 from the floor for 26 points. Now, Butler played well, kinda. He was pretty passive early on. Then he woke up a little bit in the second quarter. Third quarter, he was very good in the first 3 minutes to set the tone. Then he kind of went quiet again. And then he woke up again late third quarter. And then in the late fourth quarter with some stat padding backdoor cuts, for being honest. But still, finished with 28 points.
That's exactly what it was.
That's exactly what happened. But he had 28, 7, and 6. He played pretty well. Played 43 minutes, which is 5 less minutes than I thought he was going to play. I'm gonna save Bam for later because Bam's gonna have to go up against Jokic, and I'll save that for a second. Vincent was okay. Strus really didn't do much, but he had a couple of big threes, which kind of helped get the Heat back on track. Robinson, same thing, had a couple of shots there, but for the most part was quiet. I liked how Highsmith played. I think Highsmith gave them some good energy there in the second quarter.
Yeah.
Kyle Lowry, though, was really, really good. I was roasting him for potentially being washed, and I'm not saying that he's got a lot left in the tank, but for a Game 7, he showed up. He had 7 points, 7 rebounds, 5 steals. Not 5 steals, sorry, 5 assists. He was a plus 26, a team high plus 26 in 24 minutes. He was great.
Yeah.
Simply put, Lowry was really good off the bench.
He was. And it went, I guess it had more to do with what he, like the stat line didn't show, like extra possessions, keeping like tip-ins and, extra ball movement whenever he's getting the ball, finding the right guys, and getting guys in the right spot. Yeah, I thought I thought his defense was especially really good on Smart at times.
Kyle Lowry, 7 rebounds in 24 minutes.
Right. Yeah, man. I thought he played extremely well. The Heat, they just find ways to do it. And I think that zone kind of preserved a lot of Jimmy's legs whenever he took that hit to the knee. And I seen that. I saw that, and I didn't think the broadcasters were making that big of a deal about it. I guess because he didn't come out or anything. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what you can say about Miami. I mean, they shot the lights out this entire series. I think what did they shoot tonight? Shot 14 of 28 from 3, only 6 free throws.
Also, just a reminder here, the Heat had 6 points roughly halfway through the first quarter.
Right. And, I mean, I thought it was going to be one of those games where they resort back to the regular season Heat and they just can't make a shot. But they turned it on. They got their
To be honest, even if they did, they might have still won this game because Boston couldn't have shot. They might have won anyway. But
yeah, and I mean, they only had 19 points off turnovers, and I thought it would be a whole lot more than that. Boston turned it over 15 times.
Yeah, Brown had more than half the turnovers for the entire team.
He had
Miami won by 19 and only attempted 6 free throws.
Yeah.
How often does that happen?
Butler usually shoots 6 free throws in the first quarter.
Yeah, he had 2, and those were in the final couple. Those were like the final 3 minutes of the fourth quarter. So,
yeah, I don't think this was Miami's A game. I thought it was maybe their like C+ game.
It really was. It was just an F- game from Boston.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, they scored their lowest first quarter point total in the entire season in the biggest game of the year. Scored 15 points in the first quarter.
Christ.
They started, I believe it was 0 for 14 from 3. Ended up going 9 of 42. I think Cornette hit a 3-pointer in like the final minute, so it was even worse than that when the game actually mattered. But
I think Muscala came in and hit a 3 as soon as he got in the game.
I said it was Cornette. It might have been Muscala. It was one of those two.
Sure.
Really tall white center hit a 3-pointer in the corner. Right. I don't know which one it was.
Right. No, you were right. It was.
I thought it was Cornette, but I'm not totally sure. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it doesn't.
But
anyway,
it was
Muscala.
I'll ask you this, though. We're going to pivot and talk a little bit about the potential future of Boston and what they might have to do moving forward. Not too far in depth, but a little bit of talk. And we're also going to talk about Miami, maybe briefly about their potential chances against Denver. We're going to have a separate show for the finals preview, but we can at least talk about it. But you have anything else you want to add on this game before we move on?
Do I? No, I don't.
Okay, cool. So we're going to talk about the Celtics next and what they might have to do moving forward. But before I actually do that, I want to talk to you about our sponsor, Edge Boost. Have you signed up for Edge Boost yet? If not, you're missing out. Edge Boost is the world's first bet now, pay later Visa card. Similar to buy now, pay later programs, Edge Boost enables you to double your bet with no interest and pay back the advance over 4 equal weekly installments. That's right, 0% interest. Simply deposit funds into your account, and Edge Boost will match the deposit so you can use 2 times the funds on any legal sports betting site. Edge currently offers up to $2,500 in advances. Up to $2,500 you can add to your bankroll. My Edge Boost double down play of the day is, at this point, I don't even know. Denver minus 1.5 games in the NBA Finals. I don't even know what the odds are, whatever. Go to sportscampodcast.com/edge to sign up today. That's sportscampodcast.com/edge. Must be 21 years or older to use. Only valid in legal gambling states. Problem gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome back, everyone, to the NBA Gambling Podcast for the recap show here for the Eastern Conference Finals Game 7. We just talked about the game and how one team showed up and how one team completely crumbled when their best player got hurt in the first 3 minutes of the game. Now it's time to look big picture for Boston, because with the new CBA, they might have to let some guys go. I don't know if you listened to the Bill Simmons podcast. They kind of broke down the new CBA agreement, like a 40-minute breakdown there. Very informative. I actually recommend listening to it if you wanted to learn more about the labor negotiations and stuff like that. But long story short, a lot of teams are going to have to remake the rosters. And Tatum and Brown are kind of going to be your duo no matter what. I'm assuming they're going to re-sign Brown. I don't know if they're going to trade him. I don't know if his trade value is diminished after what just happened in the series. I'm not sure. I think Boston's going to keep him. I'll start there. Do you think Brown is wearing a Celtics jersey starting next year?
Yeah, he has to be if they want to continue to get to peak levels and try to get a championship. They're not going to do it without Jaylen Brown. Not as long as they have Tatum. I mean, of course, if they go out and get if they could have went out and got Kevin Durant or something like that, then that's a different story. But if they want to go to the finals again, they won't be able to do it with just Jason Tatum. They're going to have both of those guys in a Celtics uniform. I mean, he didn't play well in the series. Honestly, I don't think he played well throughout this playoffs. Maybe a couple games here and there. But yeah, they're going to have to keep him if they want to contend and keep contending for championships.
For me, I'm on the fence about it. I do think he's going to be in a Celtics jersey for next year, at least the start of it. The problem is, simply put, I don't think Tatum and Brown are good enough tandem to win a title. Just simply put, I don't trust them in big games. Tatum proved himself more than Brown did, and I'm not going to fully roast Tatum for this game because he rolled his ankle 3 minutes in. So that's a completely fluke situation. And Tatum did avenge his previous chokes with the 50-plus point game in Game 7 against Philly. Brown vanishes all the time in the playoffs, and at some point, you got to at least acknowledge that maybe he's just not that guy. Now, I'm not saying he's as soft as Karl Anthony Towns or maybe DeAndre Ayton or some of these guys, James Harden, who constantly vanish in playoff series, but Brown's kind of brutal in a lot of these playoff games, and I got to at least point it out. I'll ask you this. Assuming Boston keeps relatively the same core, do you actually think Tatum and Brown are good enough to win a title? Forget about quote-unquote contending. Can you see a world where those two guys lift a trophy?
Yeah, I can. I can see it. But I think that's mostly going to have to be, next a even higher step by Tatum. So
by Tatum or by Brown?
No, I think Tatum's good because I don't know I think Brown might have reached his ceiling, second team All-NBA.
That's the problem I have. If this is his ceiling, especially in playoff time, they're not winning a title if he's your second.
But I think he can get better in the playoffs. I mean, he's played in a lot of playoff series, so it is kind of troubling that he hasn't played.
That's the point. You'd assume at some point he'd have some comfort level with it.
Yeah, and the thing with it, I don't know if maybe this the trade stuff was getting to him, or whatever the case may be. So I think he is going to be in a jersey, but the bigger question that we got to ask ourselves is if he actually wants to be in a Celtics jersey. So we heard all the stuff, leading up to this. And of course, none of that's going to sound good after the 3-game win streak. But now when things calm down and they're not playing anymore, it's kind of like, does he really want to be there? And they could probably, I'm assuming they could sign and trade him if they felt like they could get a better bargain or whatever. But
in theory, let's say you could trade him to Portland, get the 3rd pick in the draft, which may be Scoot Henderson, who knows, Simons, and maybe a couple other picks. Is that tempting at all to you?
No, they'll get beat in the first round.
They probably would. My point is,
long term, tough. Yeah, long term maybe. Like Tatum's 24, 25.
No, it just feels like he's 25 because everyone kept making jokes he was 21 for about 15 straight years.
Yeah, so
I got to see how old Tatum is. I want to say he's 27, but I got to pull it up.
Yeah, I think he's only 20.
Tatum is actually only 25. How the hell is he only 25 years old?
Man, you're that good that early. He was in the Eastern Conference Finals as a rookie.
Hang on a second. I'm older than Jason Tatum?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Okay,
yeah,
wow. That's unfortunate.
It's Jaylen Brown. That's a year. He came in a year before.
Yeah. I knew that. I didn't realize Tatum was 25.
Yeah, he's young, man. He was on that. Remember that list that the NBA does? They always do 25 and under, like the best players.
Yeah, but I saw on that list for 8 years, so I always lost track of what year I was looking at. He's been on that list since he was 19 years old, so I don't know if that even meant much to me. But for the most part, my point is, I don't think they're a good enough duo to win a championship. And yes, I know with Simons and with some picks, they're going to lose earlier in the first round. But long term, I think they'll be better off. I'm just not a Jaylen Brown guy in terms of big games. And I do think he's proven time and time again, whether it involves a lack of a bag or just a lack of an overall decision-making or decision processing unit in his head. I just think that they're better off potentially moving elsewhere, at least trying something new. They're not going to. They're going to keep it together. Tatum and Brown are attached to the hip, so I think they're going to keep it together.
Yeah.
But with how badly he played in the series, Boston fans might be all over him in the offseason, and that might push him away. So we'll see what happens. But
yeah, we'll see.
Besides that, though, we both think Mazzulla is going to be back, correct?
Yeah, I think he'll be back. Yeah,
I thought he should be, but I think he will.
Even if they got swept, I thought he was going to be back. I mean, just hearing some of the things that people, that cover the team or whatever, like Brad and I guess higher up, they like him and they love him. I mean, he's put in a tough position to succeed. So I mean, he got them to the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, it's not a moral victory or anything, not in the NBA, but he got them there under tough circumstances. He wasn't even in the first row of the coaches. He lost his whole staff. He didn't have a full off season as a coach.
The scenario was brutal. He was set up for failure.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But...
Yeah, but so I mean, now don't get me wrong. Now I'm not taking up for him and saying that he's good at his job or anything. I think he's better than a lot of people actually think he is. And some of the things that transpired in this series and throughout this playoffs, I think had more to do with the players than the actual coach. Not taking away blame from him, but just, being as fair as you can be. I mean, I don't think all of it's to blame on him. Is he a bad coach? I don't know. It's just a small sample size. Did he make a few bad decisions within this playoff run? Absolutely, he did. It's not
really just the decisions. It's the fact that it felt like he didn't learn anything in the span of 5 months.
Yeah, I mean, I can respect that. I can respect that. Yeah,
it's one thing if you show me progress. The only reason why people think there was progress being made is because they were winning games. But once again, it's because they were more talented than every other team.
Right, and I don't think he did a lot of adjusting there. Maybe small stuff, but I mean, nothing too crazy.
I know Miami runs a unique defense. You saw a zone defense for 7 games, and you couldn't solve a zone for 7 games.
Not in a little.
That's a problem.
Yeah, that's a big problem. It's coaching.
So that's my point. The players, of course, weren't great. They're a relatively soft team mentally, even though I know they won a couple elimination games against even weaker teams mentally than themselves. But I'm not a Mazzulla guy. I think he'll be back next year, though. So I do think Boston has already been eliminated from NBA title contention next year if they bring back Brown and Mazzulla. So we'll see. Point guard 2, Brogdon, I don't know. I mean, he was injured. We'll see how he does. But Brogdon's always hurt. That's the story of his career.
He'll be fine. But
I'm saying, I don't know if you can rely on him in a playoff run because he gets hurt all the time. And we saw that again this year. So Boston is in a weird spot because their overall roster is fine, especially with most of the other teams having to revamp everything with the new hard cap, basically, which is happening in the NBA. But I still don't really trust their stars enough, and I think that's going to be their Achilles heel moving forward. As for Miami, this team now gets to face off against Denver. I saw Denver was around minus 360. They have a massive rest advantage. Miami will not have to cancel their flights to Denver, so that's a big deal for them. But I do want to ask you this, because I was saving my opinion on one Miami player for this moment. I got to talk about Bam. I thought Bam sucked tonight. Full disclosure, I thought he was awful. He could not hit a layup on anybody. He had a couple of chances to hit layups on Derek White, and he was afraid to back down Derek White, which was just embarrassing to watch. He ended up picking it up late, did a good job on the boards in the fourth quarter, ended up having a couple of layups there where Boston was kind of half full court pressing, and he ended up having a couple of runs to the rim. Bam looked invisible for about 3 quarters, and he got into foul trouble as well on some illegal screens and some stuff like that. And then he kind of picked it up a little bit with a mix of Boston really just kind of leaving him alone when they were trying to trap. But now Bam has to face off against Jokic. I'm just going to put it this way. People say that Bam's one of the best defensive centers in the league. I can understand that argument.
He is.
Bam's going to get cooked in this series, right?
I mean, who the hell is
I don't just mean defensively. I mean offensively and defensively. He's going to get killed out there, right? Like, are we on the same page here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a center or anybody that we saw what he did to Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis is like one of the premier big defenders, and he was getting double. He was having to have double teams. And Bam is not as big as AD is. So Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what Spo does to kind of, I guess,
Deal with him.
I guess he's gonna have to mask it. I'm guessing he's gonna throw love on him. I mean, I know we're gonna preview it later on, but I think he's gonna have to use a lot of love. He's gonna have to
shout out
use
to
a
Kevin
lot.
Love, who did not play the last 2 games, but is going back to the NBA Finals.
But he's
Shout out
gonna
to
be
him.
big in this series, though. He's gonna have to be big in this series.
Yeah, he's gonna need to because Miami doesn't have enough bodies.
Right, exactly. So I think Zeller's gonna be big. They're gonna have to play him. They're gonna have to put multiple bodies on him and throw different looks at him. That zone probably is not gonna work because, I mean, Malone is gonna figure it out. He's not gonna.
Well, it's not going to work because Jokic is actually an elite passer, which is something Boston does not have. So he is
put him in the middle of that zone
that can get guys wide open.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think that's the big difference here. Boston doesn't have enough facilitators.
Yeah, Bam has to average about 22, 23 points for them to be competitive here because Jimmy's going to be Jimmy. Those role guys, I think they're going to have a lot more confidence going into this series than they did in this past series. The confidence is only going to keep growing.
I don't know if Hero can do any better, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, they don't even like the thing is they don't even need him to be 24 and 10. All they need him to do is 13 and 16.
In this Denver series, they might need 24 and 10. If I'm being honest, they might.
I mean,
it.
But if you get 15 from Strus and 15 from Vincent, 16 here, one of them is going to have a big game every other night. I mean, they've shown that, and I mean, Hero is clear for basketball activities. He was shooting. Even before game 6, he was shooting.
I'm concerned they're going to rush him back, and he's going to look really underwhelming when he comes back, and he might sabotage the rotations. But we'll see what happens.
Full Jameer Nelson mode whenever they play.
Potentially, potentially a Jameer Nelson situation. But
sure.
Still, what was that 09 when they lost in the finals to the Lakers?
Was it 09? Yeah. 08 maybe.
I think that was 09. I think maybe.
Okay. Maybe I don't know.
I think it was 09. But anyway. Point is, I just briefly touch upon the Heat, which I praised all their guys because most of them played really well tonight. I thought Bam was brutal. Even though he picked it up in the second half and defensively he had some moments there, he drew a couple of charges with his chin. So there's that. But still, Bam really seemed underwhelming the entire game, and that's not going to suddenly change for me. I was all over his unders for points. I was all over his overs for rebounds, so I actually called this game correctly to a T. But Bam, I didn't think looked good, and he's going to have to play a lot better against Jokic. And truth is, I thought Boston, I know Robert Williams went to the locker room a little bit, and I know that he was kind of in and out of the lineup. I thought he should have played more. Miami had no answers for him at all the entire game, and they just pulled him after like 15 minutes.
Yep.
He was kind of kicking Bam's ass, and they just didn't use him enough.
All series.
What was it? Williams missed, what was it, one shot the entire series?
Nah, he was I wrote it down.
He missed one shot the entire series.
Let me see. Let me check his what's in there. Okay, the first 2 games he didn't miss. He was 6 of 6 and 5 of 5. Then he went 4 of 8, 3 of 5, 3 of 3.
Yeah, I take it back. He shot 78.4% from the floor.
Yeah.
He averaged 9.4 points per game in 19 minutes per game. You're really telling me he couldn't have gotten more minutes?
Yeah, and the defense was there. He was good on switches. Now, early on in the series, he was bad. He was bad. Like
I thought he did a very good job on Butler tonight.
Yeah. I mean,
blocks there.
Like the first few games, he was bad though, like defensively.
Yeah,
and that's why in game 3, his minutes kind of went downhill because he was not being able to be good on switches, which is what he was known for doing. His length on those perimeter guys, but. Yeah, I mean it's gonna be a good. Well, I think it's gonna be a good series for Denver coming up, but it's gonna be interesting to see what Spo does because Spo's gonna have something. He's gonna have something. And to your point, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I was listening to maybe Tim Bontemps. I think maybe Tim Bontemps, Brian Windhorst, and the numbers for Joker against Bam, they aren't good. Like, well, for Bam, that is. Joker has annihilated him. I think he's like 10
I was
gonna
say, like, I'm pretty sure Joker has completely owned him in every meeting.
I think he's like 10-2 straight up. I think he's averaging like 27, 13, and 9 or like something insane. I have to while you talk, I'll look that up. So
Well, I was going to quickly pull up some future prices. Once again, we're not going to fully break down the series because we're going to do that later on in the week, but I wanted to at least talk about the series briefly because we kind of have to at this point because Miami's now in a brutal scheduling spot. They have 2 days off, then they're playing in altitude. So I'm assuming Denver's going to kill them in game one. Do we agree on that?
absolutely.
So Denver's a laying 8.5 in game one. Early
Absolutely.
lean Denver. I think they buried Miami in game one. Not to mention Butler tweaking his ankle, so maybe Miami just rolls over in that game. But I wanted to look for the actual odds just to briefly bring it up. I saw Denver was around minus 360 to win the NBA Finals, which is now at minus 420. So that's actually kind of fitting. That's Denver and it's at 420, but that doesn't exactly surprise me. But to look at anything else, though, I'm trying to see if there's a series actual spread here. So Denver is minus 1.5 games, but you can get 2.5 games at plus 130. Personally, briefly talking about it, I think Denver wins in 4 or 5. I think Denver kicks the crap out of this team. Personally. Now, I know other people are going to look at me and go, Miami's here. They've proven people wrong the entire playoffs. They're going to prove wrong. Oh, okay, sure. Like, Denver's the best team in the league. I feel like us on the show might have been in denial about it for a while. I was willing to accept it, but I was still hesitant because of all the past struggles that Denver might have had in the playoffs, and I wanted to see how they would fare. Middle of that Phoenix series, I'm looking at this team like, oh, this team is just different. And then you saw them against the Lakers, and it's like, oh, this team is really different. And then Miami, once again, they beat. When you really look back on it, the Eastern Conference kind of sucked, didn't it? Can we say that?
I mean, outside of the Milwaukee thing, and without Giannis, I mean, they're a totally different team, obviously, with Giannis than without. So I
Just
thought
like
that he
looking
caught
at, but let's give Miami full credit for the
yeah,
Milwaukee series, even with
yeah. No,
Giannis getting
I
hurt.
will.
Let's give
Yeah,
them
yeah,
full credit.
yeah.
You had Philly and you had Boston. Would we agree those are two of the mentally weakest finals contenders that we've seen in a long time?
Yeah, with two
With Rivers
non-losing
and with
coaches. Yeah,
Missoula as coach,
yeah,
like that's
yeah,
rough.
yeah.
So the point is, I'm impressed Miami made it up to this point, obviously, because nobody thought they were going to. I think Denver's a different animal, simply put. I think Denver's
Yeah,
going to
they
win
are.
the series comfortably. You brought up the Knicks in 99 being the 8th seed to make it to the NBA Finals. They got swept. I think Denver wins the series comfortably, personally. So my initial thought on this series, I think Denver might actually sweep this team, but I'll go Denver in 5 to be nice. But I
Yeah,
do like the minus 2.5 games at plus 130. I think that's a great deal at plus 130.
yeah. My just initial gut reaction is to take Denver in 6 because I think Spo can get a game and I think Butler can get a game.
Okay.
That's just my gut reaction without digging into like matchups or anything like that. But I don't disagree with you because originally, whenever I basically was preparing for Miami to close them out in like 5 games, like the close out Boston in 5 games. So I was already like pre-prepping for
I
Denver
said the
and
comeback was
Miami.
doable after game 4 because it was only one road game. But then I said in the podcast for game 7, I would be less surprised than most people if Miami pulled this off because Boston is such an underwhelming team in big moments in terms of actual clutch performance and in terms of coaching. So I was not as shocked as most people that Miami pulled this off tonight. But most people thought Miami was going to sweep once they won game 3.
Yeah, I thought they would at least close them out in 5 or 6. But
I know you had Boston in game 4, but as most people thought that Boston was going to get swept in game 4.
yeah, so yeah, just my initial just gut reaction is just to take Denver in 6. I don't disagree with you though, as far as like from a standpoint of a bad spot in game 1 after you just went through what you went through mentally and you've seen Butler's knee and going to altitude with rest is you're even already at a disadvantage. So going in there after you had a war. Now, granted, this game wasn't as physical or as I guess it wasn't as competitive as we thought it was going to be. So that didn't take much out of them. But the series, I think, did mentally and physically. So that's the advantage for Denver in game 1. So I'm thinking you're already down 0-1. That's how I'm going into it. So you're already down 1-0. I think Spo can get one. I think Jimmy can go with nuclear and have a 40-50 point game and win one. So
By the way, so I looked up the odds. I found it on DraftKings. Denver minus 1.5 games is minus 150. Denver minus 2.5 games is plus 145.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd have to look into it a little bit more, but I don't hate your take, like, because from like a matchup perspective, like Denver does
Denver is such a
everything
bad matchup for Miami.
right. It is. They do everything well, and Miami just doesn't have the horses to be able to sustain some of the things that Denver does. And Denver is playing really well defensively, which was kind of the Achilles heel in the regular season, quote unquote. But they played really well defensively in the playoffs, and I think we both were pioneering that on this show. So yeah, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be really, really tough. But like I said, I got respect for Jimmy and Spo to get 2 games. So yeah, my initial is just Nuggets in 6.
Yeah, my initial's either Denver in 4 or 5, but I'll take the plus 145 if I had to give it out right now. But we'll go into a deeper breakdown later on in the week for the NBA Finals, as well as individual games, of course, which we're going to keep doing. Besides that, though, anything else you want to add? It doesn't have anything to do with Game 7, but we're not going to have a show tomorrow, so I'm not sure when we can talk about it. You want to briefly discuss the Nick Nurse sign or hire?
Honestly, I'm indifferent. One of my friends, my cousin, he had texted me and asked me about the Nick Nurse thing. I'm like completely like indifferent on it. I don't know if he's a good coach or not. They didn't. I mean, he had a good run with Kawhi, but again, Kawhi was playing out of his mind, and
Van Vliet in the final.
Yeah, and that like it was injury riddled. Like, I mean, we all know if Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson don't get hurt, they're not winning that series. So I don't know how much credit you give him. I mean, what you going to give him credit for running a boxing 1, boxing 2?
They came back from 2-0 down against Milwaukee. I thought that was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, again, I thought it was more
just saying.
Kawhi.
Anytime you come back, win the final 4 games down 2-0, I'll be impressed.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know if he's a good coach. To put it in.
They had a really underrated. They had such an underratedly stacked team, though, with Kawhi and Prime Lowry. Siakam was still very solid. Marc Gasol before he was totally washed. You had Van Vliet off the bench. Norman Powell.
Oh, yeah,
they had a squad.
Yeah, I thought they got some.
I think Powell was on that team. That was
who else did they beat?
Before the Trent trade.
Did they beat Philly, Milwaukee, and who was the other?
Philly they beat Orlando in the first round because DJ Augustine hit the game-winning shot in Game 1, and they immediately lost the next 4 games. Then you had the Kawhi shot. Then you had the Milwaukee comeback there from 2-0 down, and then you had the NBA Finals.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's a good coach. I'm not gonna lie. I guess people think he is because I mean he won a title, but we saw
I had issues with Nurse the last couple of years with some of his decision making, but the one thing I will give him credit for, he's not afraid to experiment, which is something that Spoelstra excels in. Spoelstra's going to push the envelope and do unorthodox things like play a makeshift zone because he knows that it's something that can even maybe an overall mismatch because he just relies on his coaching to put teams in a position they're not prepared for. Yeah. Nurse will do that. Yeah, Nurse will give you unique defensive looks. He'll play the starters 40-something minutes a game because he needs to, which with Embiid might be a terrible combo. It's a separate story. But the point is, I like Nurse as a coach. Do I think he's amazing? No. I think he's good, though. I think he's top 10.
Some people think he's like top 6, 7 coach. Yeah, I don't know.
His rotations a lot of coaches, though. So, like, the bar is low, but he's definitely top 10.
His rotations are horrible. So, if you thought Doc's rotations were horrible, Philly fans better get used to it.
Well, jokes on you because you think Philly actually has rotation guys. Who the hell does Philly have in the rotation?
That's a fair point.
You want more minutes for Shake Milton?
I know. I want more minutes for.
I like Melton.
Yeah, I do like Milton and Reed, Paul Reed.
Yeah, B-ball Reed.
Yeah, I like Paul.
Oh, Reed's going to play a lot of minutes once Embiid gets hurt, playing 40 minutes a week straight. So Reed's going to be a great fantasy addition halfway through the year next year. But
right.
I like the hire. at the end of the day, you went from Doc Rivers to a coach that won a title, who
from a
does not
doctor
have
to
a
a
history of
nurse.
choking, who has really brought some Toronto teams that were not the most talented in the world to some pretty close spots. They had that Game 7 in the bubble against Boston where they were getting buried in that series, and they actually made a series out of it. So I do like Nurse as a coach. I'm not as high as other people are on him, but it's a
There we go.
massive upgrade over Doc Rivers.
Yeah, see,
in
I
my
don't know.
opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's like that much better than Doc. I don't know.
For your goals, it is, because you know Doc's not going to win a title again.
Yeah, I don't know
Nurse
if
has a
Nick's
chance to.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. I got to see more from him. I guess it's a cop out answer, but yeah, I'm not sure he's as good
you're
as
not
people
wrong.
think he is.
I mean, we're going to see how it goes, but I think the hire is fine. I'm shocked Nurse took the job. I thought Nurse would potentially get a job somewhere else, but James Harden's probably not going to be there next year, especially with the new CBA. So they're going to have some cap space. You're probably looking at Maxey and Embiid. So we'll see how that goes. And Tobias Harris.
They'll get beaten for him.
I'm sure they will, but
They get beaten for
paying Harden $50 million a year at this point is the definition of sabotaging your franchise.
Right.
Houston can do that because as of right now, they have no future. So they're going to just deal. They're going to see what happens and go from there.
They do have the king of Houston.
They do. King of Houston. I don't think he's ever won more than 20 games in a season, but he's the king of Houston. So we'll see what happens. I think Şengün's actually the king of Houston, but people aren't ready for that conversation yet. But I wanted to bring that up. But we covered Game 7. We covered the Celtics' future. You're a bit higher on them than I am. I think they're just a standard, good regular season, mediocre playoff team. That's what I see from Boston. But once again, we'll see what happens moving forward. Say goodbye to Grant Williams, though. They can't afford him anymore, so he's not going to be there. But besides that, we talked about Miami and how they were able to get it done. Give Caleb Martin a key to the city. Give him $500 million. Give him whatever the hell he wants. Give him a team. Give him a little ownership stake in the team. Whatever you want.
It's on his brother, Cody.
I'm going to tell my grandkids about the Eastern Conference Finals 2023 Caleb Martin performance. But besides that, though, we covered briefly the NBA Finals. I think we kind of dragged this out long enough, don't you?
Yeah, Caleb Martin got robbed. He should have won it. He shouldn't have won the MVP.
5-4. Plus 3,500.
Fucking Reggie Miller.
I wasn't wrong. I said Butler was going to get it, and he got it, but it felt dirty. It felt really, really dirty. If I'm being honest. It was like watching the Heisman Trophy when one player is a finalist, but all of his games take place in the West Coast. So you know that 90% of the 55-year-old plus voters did not watch him play a single game in college, and there's no chance they're going to vote for him, and they're voting for the SEC running back.
Yeah. I felt like I don't know if you watched the session, but I felt like Kent Roy last night in the finale, man. When
I didn't watch it. I actually have not watched Succession yet.
Yeah, well, I don't want to spoil it for you, but yeah,
I heard it's a great show from what I heard. I'll watch it at some point.
Yeah, people who are watching, they know what I'm talking about. What happened? That's how I felt when Jimmy raised that trophy.
Fair enough, but either way, props to Miami once again. Do what they had to do. Now they're flying to Denver. I don't know if you saw that, by the way. Bam was holding the Eastern Conference title trophy, and he looked at Butler, and he offered to hand the trophy over to Butler, and Butler gave him a look like, "Are you out of your damn mind?" And he just shook his head, no, didn't touch the trophy.
Yeah, was it me or did Jimmy just look like he was just like not pleased? Like I don't know if he's like locked.
Funny. He's walking off the court, and they handed him the hat that said like Eastern Conference champions, and he just rips the hat out of her hands and keeps walking to the locker room.
Yeah, man. I don't know. Jimmy looks like
he's totally wired in.
Yeah,
to be fair, the point probably is we made the finals before we lost, so he's not celebrating because he wants to win the thing. I don't think he's going to, but once again, props to him for making it.
I respect it.
So do I. But once again, congrats to Miami, congrats to Butler, congrats to Martin. Congrats to me for hitting a parlay to win like $600, and congrats to you for live cashing out of your invoice bet. And now you have multiple invoices. So congrats.
That's what you.
Yeah, we're back later on in the week once again to go through the NBA Finals for the preview, and we'll go through every game individually. But until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.